friends, welcome back to my crafty space. In today's video, we are continuing to tell stories in my Summer Stories Mochi Things notebook. Today, I'm going to be working on a double-page spread telling a story about going over to Alex and Caitlin's house and just playing around on their trampoline. I have pulled out my Allie Edwards Action Story Stamp for doing all of my stamping and embellishing this time. I have loved pulling out these story stamps and using them in these layouts, number one, because it actually gets me to use my stamps, and number two, because these specific types of stamps are really easy for creating a full layout with. Let's go ahead, get you on fast forward, and I'm going to get started putting this layout together. I'm so excited to be working on a double page spread today. These are generally my favorites for this notebook just because there's more space to play with and it allows me to use some of these full page photos. I am pulling off a bunch of stamp sets from the Action Story Stamp. Some of them are going to be titles, some of them I'm using to number my journaling sections. You can see there I've got a little bit of journaling that I've printed on some clear matte sticker paper, and there are some blank sections where I want to put the numbers 1, 2, and 3. Now I did have a couple of sentiments that I wanted to put on this picture of Erin and May jumping up and down on the trampoline, but when I was thinking about it, I decided to pull out some vellum and stamp the sentiments on the vellum, and then I will add that portion to the photo because I think that the ink would have blended in too much with the background and you wouldn't have been able to see it. So by stamping it on the vellum, it's going to allow it to pop off of the photo. One thing I will mention when you are stamping on vellum is you do need to set it to the side to dry for a fairly significant amount of time. With other types of paper, the ink will soak in and dry up pretty quickly versus a paper or a texture like vellum. It doesn't actually soak into that paper. It stays on top. So you have to wait for it to fully dry so that it won't smear on the vellum when you add it to your page later. So that's why I've gone ahead, put that to the side, and I'm going to essentially finish the rest of this layout before I do anything else with that. I chose to use some lighter purple ink this time because my daughter Izzy is wearing some of that purple color. Also, when I was putting down my journaling, you might have noticed that I snipped out the portions that are blank in the journaling because I want to stamp the 1, 2, and 3 directly onto the paper. I don't think it would have turned out if I would have stamped it onto the sticker paper. I'm not sure how the ink would have settled into that texture. So instead, I just snipped those sections out, stuck the journaling down, and now I can stamp the 1, 2, and 3 directly on the paper, and everything is great. I also used that same purple color to stamp an arrow that's pointing down. And then on top of that, I have a sentiment that I stamped in black. It does make the arrow a little harder to see. I almost wish I would have stamped the sentiment in a darker or a medium tone gray because I think the points of the arrows would have stood out a little bit more, but it's not a big deal. It really doesn't matter that much, and honestly, it's just kind of nice to have the color behind the sentiment. I think it still looks perfectly fine. And then to bring in the purple one more spot, I added it in the bottom right corner as a sentiment. Now I went to go ahead and adhere in this full page photo on the left-hand side before I realized that I forgot to punch out my stamped vellum sentiment and add that to the photo. So that's why I've stuck my scissors in there as a wedge to hold the photo up so the adhesive doesn't stick down. And then I'm going to punch out my sentiment into a circle, add it at the top of my photo with my tiny attacher. And then once that's on there, I can actually stick everything down and we are good to go. All right, so after rounding off the corners, I'm going to return to the right side of the page and get the rest of my photos adhered into the places where they go. Most of these photos are taken out on the trampoline at Alex and Caitlin's house. Some of them are just, they make me laugh because the kids are making crazy faces and just having a really, really good time. I'm using ruler adhesive to stick all of this down. My ruler adhesive is still kind of acting wonkier, this new refill is, so that's not fun, but I'll eventually fix it. All right, so that finishes my layout for today. For this layout's journaling, here is what I wrote. So I've got it divided into 3 different sections. I said, we went over to Alex and Caitlin's for a Father's Day brunch. The weather was gorgeous, so we all decided to go outside and play a bit after we ate. The kids love to come over here because Alex and Caitlin have a trampoline and they absolutely love to play on it as much as they possibly can. Their favorite game by far is popcorn. The kids will sit tight in a ball while Erin and May jump around them trying to break them open. So that is that. I hope you enjoyed seeing this layout come together, and I will be back again next week with my last layout that I'll be completing in this album for Patreon. In the month of October, we're going to switch over to some October daily documenting. So this album I will either finish on the side or work on throughout the next couple of months, maybe post some reels or something like that over on Instagram, because I don't want this to become another unfinished project. If anything, I might just take this to the end of June and let this be stories from June. We'll see. I'm not totally sure yet. All I know is that I am feeling ready to dive into fall documenting, so I'm going to follow what I feel like doing, right? Which is something we should all do more of, and maybe not feel so guilty about not having things finished, but just follow our passions and let that lead the way. So next week I'll have one more layout in this book, and then we'll switch to October daily documenting during the month of October. Until then, I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next process video. Bye, friends.